Hey guys, and welcome to MYC Uncensored. This is Joshita speaking, and today we'll be discussing on an introduction to body language. Even though this is a short recording, this will give you some background information before learning the different types of body language and such. And recently, in a previous podcast, Attracting Good Energy plus Social Confidence, I mentioned a bit about it, and today I will delve deeper into that. Let's get started on your successful journey. Make sure to check the other topics out, and also on top of that, I will be repeating the word body language a lot. So it's just going to be repetition from here onwards. Anyway, let's start this off with the very important question. What is body language? I'll be the nerd for now and tell you the definition of it. It's where the unconscious and conscious movements of your body, the attitudes and feelings are communicated through. It also includes nonverbal messages like body movements, facial expressions, vocal tone, and other signals are examples of body language. To summarize that, these signals can reinforce what we're saying verbally or contradict it by conveying messages of our own. Did you know that based on research, only 7% of feelings takes place through words we use in spoken communication, 38% takes place through voice and pitch, and a shocking 55% takes place through body language. This drastically changed of how I viewed myself as a person compared to my friends and family who might have noticed these tiny changes in actions in my body language. Let's take an example of crossed arms against your torso. Now, this can indicate discomfort or defensiveness, while the opposite, open arms, signal our openness and friendliness instead. This gesture is something that you see quite often, and sometimes your instincts tell you that in fact this person does seem quite uncomfortable around you. But if it is paired with an open smile and a friendly tone of voice, or later on they seem to get rid of their crossed arms and start to embrace your presence more, it could seem that this might be their habitual way of showcasing that they might be interested in the conversation. I'm not talking that they might be interested in you specifically, but maybe in the conversation that you're having. But to be honest, you possibly never know. In body language, it is key to consider the context of a situation and to focus on their body language in clusters, not in their individual aspects. By using the example above of viewing crossed arms by itself and the cluster that involves a bright smile and a friendly tone of voice, you can obviously tell that it's completely different when you view it as a cluster and as an individual aspect. Another vital thing to consider is culture. Yes, culture does play a massive role in body language. So let me tell you my experience on this. Story time. So this might come in fact come across as shocking, but my family have lived in Japan for almost 2 years. But I was pretty young back then, and unfortunately, I don't remember anything. Yeah, that's a fun fact. Either way, in Japan's culture, eye contact is less common and is not considered a social norm, especially when you're talking with a person in a daily conversation or just a normal conversation. I believe you choose to have eye contact with the person if they're your friend or someone that you're really close with, since it was often viewed as disrespectful. And apparently, according to research, avoiding eye contact is a sign of respect and humility in Japan. Humility, okay, either way, but I believe that the local citizens of Japan are adapting to foreign tourists in their country and are possibly willing to create some eye contact, but we're talking about strangers here. We're not talking about like people that we are very close with. But I'm speaking about back to when I was young. And one thing I am confident in saying is that Japanese people have a more reserved and polite communication style. And yes, it has been ingrained into my personality while my time was spent there due to myself attending school for those 2 years. When I came back to my home country, my relatives were quite shocked to see a young child, like very young, struggling to look at someone in the eye as they wanted to talk to me. And on top of that, I didn't know my mother tongue quite well, so you could say that there was that language and body language barrier in between us. Obviously, I was portrayed as that anxious, shy kind of person, and they obviously took it that way. But in reality, when they started to spend more time with me, they realized that I was a mischievous, silly, fun kid. They were astonished by the way I was acting. Well, considering my body language expressed then, how could anyone know? And it's crazy, honestly, about how my body language changed their impression. Or maybe even if I was that shy and anxious kind of person back then, it could have left that kind of impression. On top of that, the same goes towards you. What kind of body language are you expressing? Well, that's a food for thought. But instead, when you begin to spend time with the person that you want to chat with, well, continuing on from the sentence above, you start to realize that they're not really who you think they are. That's practically the main point of my entire story. But the main reason why people learn how to read body language is to know when it's the right time to ask for something, such as a request or a favor are the most simplest things that I'm discussing, and when to steer clear of them, as in terms of their behavior and how they act towards you, could be quite harsh for healthy relationships. That is probably one of the reasons why I've picked up body language so seriously. Maybe to understand people better could be another reason as to why. Due to the fact that you want to read other people's minds, probably. Well, once you learn how to read body language to an extreme level, then probably yes, you could become a human lie detector or a mind reader. Don't quote me on that, it's just an exaggeration of the ability to read the other person. Now, here comes the serious part where the body cues differences between facial expressions comes into play. Obviously, there are different body language cues which can change depending on their age, gender, and cultural background. Okay, please keep these in mind. Body cues are like clues that tell you what the person might be feeling, and you can grasp that to understand the person better in encountered yet different situations that obviously you've had them with. Don't just assume that they're like that. For example, introverts tend to be more rigid in social situations in terms of their arm movements and gestures, or when they're being placed on the spot, and they're also more inclined to break eye contact. Extroverts, on the other hand, looks at the person when they're talking, such as involving things as bursting into laughter, or they're just probably more engaged in the conversation than introverts are. They also tend to move around the room a lot. Now, as body language observers, we must pay attention to how people react with their bodies, as well as their changes in their emotions during your time spent with them. It is necessary to create a baseline to the people or person that you're trying to understand through body language. Baselines are when you take note of what is considered the norm for that person that you're referring to. Be honest about it and make sure to leave biases and judgments behind you when creating these baselines for your family or friends. For example, I could be more inclined to cross my arms with no specific reason instead of leaving my arms at my side. It doesn't mean that I'm uncomfortable, it just means that my body's used to placing that gesture when I just feel well normal or just alright. Now, if you didn't place that baseline, all of a sudden you're thinking that I'm quite uncomfortable around you, but in reality, this is not the case. I think it's now easier to imagine to why we create baselines to begin with, since you obviously want to avoid any misunderstandings in your relationship and to have a more accurate understanding of their body language that is being expressed. Another thing to add is that you don't have to create these baselines in a notebook for every person that you meet. First of all, that's creepy. Think about a scenario, it's a very extreme scenario, yes, I do know that, where you find out that your friend whom you've never see, whom you've never see that chats along with you and is probably very quiet during those conversations has an entire page or possibly a few more devoted to their understanding of your body language. Okay, now you get what I'm thinking about. This is quite an extreme case, and yes, I did mention about this, but think about this. You'll be carrying this book around to keep these signs fresh in your mind, about about other people's body language. So please don't do that. It's best to keep in mind that, oh, this person acts like this when they just feel uncomfortable, or that this person placed this gesture during a very enjoyable time. Just keep it simple. That's the main point. And also, there's no rush to this, all right? Just keep it simple. People also act differently depending on their environment and also who they're with. And that's a very obvious condition. Some people are more inclined to copy other people's body language to be more liked or socially connected in like situations like a high school kind of situation. Yeah. And I'm not targeting these specific people, but I'm doing this to create awareness that there's many different types of people that involve many different types of body language and not necessarily are classified or categorized through science and technology by labeling them as a type. Anyway, this is just a short introduction to body language and a weird story. And I'll end this off with a food for thought, as in, what kind of person are you? Through body language, obviously. Anyway, this is Joshita from MYC Uncensored, and I hope you had a great time listening to this podcast. Peace out.